We have two communications about one of the public works. I'll turn it over to, Roger.
All right, thank you. We have a special public works with a couple of resolutions. One of them and a couple of other resolutions in our packet tonight contains some purchasing for 11 Warren Street. So before we vote on these resolutions, I would ask Ray Drakowski to come up and give us an update on 11 Warren Street and where we are. It's an important project. It's moving ahead. I also want to mention to everybody too, if you haven't been over to the 911 building, they're setting steel this week. It's starting to shape up and that project. So take it away, Ray.
Thank you. Evening, everyone. So it's been pretty active as far as the work associated with 11 Warren. I know it's been quite some time as far as providing the board a full update, but I have been providing the Public Works Committee updates on a monthly basis as far as the various activities that are taking place. More recently, at the end of last year, we did receive the 75% construction documents associated with the project, as well as the budget associated with that project as well. And that review had been completed. And learning from some of the things that I had done on the past project, which was the 911 project, and some of the issues that we ran into as far as the budget estimating services early on, when I put the RFP out for this particular project, I made sure that I included a clause that the architect could not create the budget as far as the project, that the 30% and 60% and basically utilizing a third party. So in this case, the third party is a consulting and a firm that helps contractors put together budgets. So they do utilize actual construction numbers because they assist contractors putting bid numbers together on projects, and they also help consultants and architects as well. So Trophy Point was the name of the company, and based on the information that they had as far as the 75% construction documents, as well as narrative or specifications associated with the project, the total construction cost remains to be within budget, which, as a reminder, was $5.1 million for that renovation. Now, that includes not only the work associated that the contractor, or my apologies, that the architects were putting together, but then also some additional services that the county is going to be responsible for. And that included the purchase and installation of cubicles, because we're trying to create an open floor plan where appropriate for various departments, door access systems, fire alarm systems, and camera systems. And again, the reason that we pulled out some of those items is because we're trying to standardize some of the work and some of the vendors that we're utilizing through the county. Because again, we're currently utilizing some vendors at 325 and other locations. So we're trying to standardize that work. So again, when it comes for facilities to have spare parts and spare items, generally speaking, they're all very similar in nature. So from that point, in February, I attended a meeting with New York State ILS regarding funding for the project. Just a reminder, the county has received just over $780,000 in funding through ILS for the purposes of renovations associated with the Public Defender's Office, Conflict Defender, and 13B. And so prior to that meeting, based on the budget that was received, understanding that we were still on track to move forward with the project, we did recognize that the funding from ILS, the appropriation as far as the expenditures, need to be obligated by March 31st of this year, 2025, and they need to be drawn down by June 29th. Now, recognizing that we were at 75%, we're not quite ready to go out to bid. We weren't going to have the contractor meet the schedule as far as implementation. We created a list of items and services that we felt were appropriate associated with those departments, as well as the building systems as a whole, to seek approval from ILS that we could actually pre-purchase that, making sure that they accepted those prior to purchasing, so that way we didn't run into a problem after the fact, where they decided that they wouldn't fund it. We did receive correspondence back that they agreed to those items, and they went a little bit further, identifying that They are willing to pay for, again, building-wide expenditures, such as the architectural fees, security cameras, fire alarm systems, above and beyond the allocation area associated with public defender's office and conflict defender's office. So let me explain that a little bit. When we first were trying to negotiate with ILS about how to spend this money and what they would approve, recognizing that there's multiple departments within this building, we recognized it was going to be difficult to try to split some of those services up from a construction standpoint. So trying to simplify it, we had based it and presented to ILS that we would like to move forward with allocating the expenditures based on the percentage of square foot cost and or construction costs associated with each one of the departments. And that's what ILS had agreed to. When they took a look at the information that we had provided, they also recognized that some services can't be split up, such as the fire alarm system, as an example, because it's a building-wide, architectural services, because it's building-wide, a generator and other items such as that. So they've actually allowed us to allocate 100% or as much as we possibly can for those particular products and services. So that actually benefited us in order to meet that goal of expending down to $750,000. So from that, you'll see tonight, as far as an additional resolution, and there are already resolutions within the packet that have gone through the Public Works, where we have obtained quotations for various building materials. And again, we've been doing that to try to standardize that as well. So we had worked with Jim Bragg as well as the Central Services Department to try to go through the proper procurement policy of going on state bid, as well as private vendors and suppliers to obtain those pieces of equipment and construction materials. So that's, you'll see that tonight as an additional resolution, and then something within your packet as well. Moving forward, I had a meeting with the architects last week to create an updated schedule to get us to the point of construction. So if you recall, last year when we had bid out the 911 project, that project was bid out in the April timeframe. And we didn't get a lot of responses on that particular project. And when we went back to interview some of the contractors that did not bid, we had found out that in many instances, they were running into issues where they had conflicts with schoolwork and obligations with schoolwork during the summer months. Okay. So what I did was, working with the architect, we actually started at the September timeframe as far as beginning construction, and then trying to work our way back from that September timeframe to try to avoid any potential conflicts and then open us up to possibly getting a more competitive bidding process with multiple contractors. We found that that really worked out well when we rebid the 911, and we got very competitive quotes from contractors. That being said, it's anticipated, based on our schedule, that I'll be receiving 95% construction documents and specifications on April 7th from the design team. I'll have approximately 10 days to review that, and then which time I'm actually going to be meeting with the departments to go over every room, every finish, everything that's going to be taking place within the project. We'll then have a follow-up meeting around April 20th with the consultants to go over final comments with them. They'll have to the beginning of May to incorporate those comments. And then we'll have completed documents by May 12th, which time we'll put that project out to bid. The goal is to then obtain bids by June 27th. So that will give us roughly a 5-week timeframe for that bidding process, at which time we'll have a pre-bid meeting where we'll have walkthrough. Contractors will have time to then provide, time to request additional information in the form of any questions and clarifications, as well as responses back from the architect. And I would hope to then have resolutions for the full board meeting on July 9th. And that would then give us a month and a half to 2 months to get bonds, insurances together, contracts signed, And that way construction would start on September 8th. So that's where we would stand as far as our proposed schedule. Okay, and again, keep in mind, this particular project is the interior renovations for the project as a whole. So again, extending into the winter months, it'll be advantageous for the contractors because again, although they'll be starting late in the year, we're not going to have adverse effects associated with concrete exposure during the winter months or anything like that. It'll all be interior. Okay. Yes.
I don't hold this discussion, but I apologize. So in layman's terms, what you started with was essentially ILS funding has to be spent in a certain time frame. So we went in and found what things we could kind of pull out of the general contractor bid and do ourselves and keep consistent with other buildings. These prices include installation, or we're installing them in-house, or we're just buying them, and then the contractor bid will include installation of the things that we want.
A little of both.
Okay.
So for instance, I'll use some examples. If you take a look, there were items such as ceiling tile, carpet tile, baseboard, items such as that, light fixtures as another item. So those are pretty well standardized. So we are purchasing those.
Okay.
We have identified within the contract documents that these are items county purchasing, contractor to install.
Okay.
We're doing the same thing with a lot of the bathroom accessories because again, we're trying to standardize soap dispensers, towel dispensers, all of that sort of thing.
So like the key fob, the fire alarm system, those are
That's right. So that's a service as a whole, and then that's going to be paid for in its entirety.
And with the architectural services and the resolution we're passing tonight, we're going to be able to spend all of the available ILS funding within that timeframe that you laid out. Thank you. So current potential increase in material costs with the tariffs that are happening right now or back and forth. A lot of our materials come from Canada, aluminum, lumber. In the bid process, if a bidder gives a bid and then come September when construction is going to start, the cost of lumber has tripled. Are we still set at the bid cost, or do we then have to amend because the material cost is?
No, we would not. As long as we're acting diligently. So for instance, when a contractor submits his bid, and that's actually located within our notice to the bidders, as well the bid documents and construction documents that are let out, contractor is responsible for holding his bid number for a minimum of 45 days. So again, based on this schedule, if we bid it, if we open the bids at the end of June and then award them at the July meeting, we are well within that 45-day period. So once we award that, he's locked in. He's locked into it.
Great. And then my last question, and I don't know if this is a you question or a chairman question or a Ron question. I apologize for sounding a little bit like a broken record, but from the beginning of this process, I talked about, space utilization committee instead of it just, not that you don't do a great job, but let's have a committee that kind of is reviewing these things. I feel like every time we get to a vote, it's like, yeah, we're going to meet. And it feels like what we laid out in the one space utilization committee meeting that I came to, which is, layouts, departments, what their needs are. It feels like all that has been done and the space utilization committee hasn't met. So at this point, is the space utilization committee just not going to be involved? And why did we get to this point of the process without having the committee be a part of it?
I like that, Ron.
Sure. I think the space utilization committee was involved in the fact that we instructed Ray and the department heads to all work together with the design consultants to design what they wanted. That was our job in that. What I do think we need to do pretty soon is to come back together and talk about backfilling these empty spaces if we move out of here. We now know what departments were moving there. That was a lot of our discussion and work, but based on the direction that we gave to Ray and other department heads, they went ahead and developed that plan. The architects had worked with that. Those architects and Ray's staff have worked very well with all the department heads that are involved in moving there. And so Ray keeps talking about that, they've got these plans, and then they're going to go back to the department heads, make sure they're okay. So we're doing what the department heads need and want. That was all kind of what we directed them to do. But I do think that, I say once we empty out this building of Board of Elections, we talked to at one time, we collected some information on who's going to go there. We could come back together at some point in time pretty soon and start talking about that, how that we have an end date in sight,
Okay, and obviously we can't move backwards, but I pushed, for example, for Supervisor Adams to be on that committee because she did that professionally for years and years and years. And
Yep.
you know, you said we directed them and that wasn't this board that directed them. And I don't know who the we smaller committee is, but I just, moving forward, if we as a full board say, hey, there's going to be a committee, we're going to put certain people on it, I would love to see that process followed. So we can't go back, but
Yep.
again, you know, I think Supervisor Adams had some great skill sets to bring to those conversations that, and again, I'm not saying that you didn't do a great job, and I'm sure it was great, but a committee was formed with certain people on purpose to at least once a month meet and be like, hey, Ray, where are we at? I met with these 4 departments. Here's what I found out. So
And I will say that you're right, Supervisor Adams does have some of the good things to bring to the table, and she's been attending many meetings of Public Works and space utilization, and providing us comments where she needs to.
well, I was here at the one space utilization committee meeting here. I don't think we've met since then.
Right, yeah, we go back quite a while.
So anyway, again, I'm not gonna, you know, we can't change the past, but moving forward, I would love for space utilization to really be involved in the backfilling before it's already been decided in other meetings that, you know, those committee members actually have a say in the process as it goes.
Quite well paid.
And my other request would be the external landscaping and all of that. Before we really get anywhere on it, I'd really like to involve the city of Hudson, the public. We kind of did make a promise there to some people, so I just want to make sure that.
I'll agree. And again, if I can,
Yeah.
so since that spatialization meeting was quite some time ago, if you recall, I actually mentioned multiple times that I wanted input from the city of Hudson.
Yes,
As of yet, I've not received any input. So again, we haven't moved forward on the exterior. As far as the facade, we fully recognize that's that next phase of the overall project.
Yeah.
But to your point, it has been requested. It was requested when we first reviewed the project as a whole, later at the space utilization, and it's been months, and I've been crickets. I have not heard anything from the city of Hudson as far as any input on what they would like to see as far as the facade or any other information.
and maybe we can reach out to our Hudson representatives to, yeah,
Sure.
help make that connection happen. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Ray, you can just stay here for a minute though while I run through these resolutions in case there's any further questions. If not, but we do have resolution number 99, which is the purchase of a excavator for solid waste. It's already been financed, but motion is second, all in favor?
That's the first time I've heard MIDI used to explain a piece of equipment. I thought that was for like dress length, but go ahead.
Yeah.
I had to double check with Bill, let's say, or whatever it was, because I thought it was.
Yeah, no. There is a video. Second resolution is 115, authorization for facilities department to abolish one position and create 2 new positions.
Move it.
Second. Motion and a second, all in favor. Resolution 116 is authorization for the chairman of the board to award and execute a construction contract for replacement of Mill Hill Bridge superstructure located on Mill Hill in the town of Gallatin.
Move it. Causing problems.
Second. Motion in a second, all in favor. And resolution 117 is authorization to purchase materials and services associated with the renovations of the county office building located at 11 Warren Street that ranges from review forest. Second. Motion in a second, all in favor. And resolution 118, authorization to renew the health service agreement. I'm sorry. Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor. Thank you.
I will have the special finance, Chairman Guzzi. Call the special finance committee meeting to order. Resolution number 115, 2025.
Second.
Motion in the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 116, 2025.
Move it.
We have a motion in the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 117, 2025. Motion in the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And resolution number 118, 2025.
Move it.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Motion to adjourn? Motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All, please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, I'd like to request the clerk call the roll.
MacArthur.
Here.
Whitell.
Here.
Simmons.
Here.
Katz.
Here.
Adams. Here. Wolf.
Here.
Collins.
Here.
Riley.
Wilkinson present.
Eldridge. Here. Helsley.
In attendance.
Dvorak.
Yes.
Ligonia.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Mia.
Here.
Janutus. Here. Mussman.
Here.
Valera.
Here.
Guzzi.
Here.
Holtling. Here. Morel.
Here.
Not.
Here.
Skoda.
Present.
We have 100% attendance.
I need a motion to pay the bills, accept the treasurer's report, file the minutes within the clerk's office.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we have, two proclamations. The first one is, March being Women's History Month, and I'd like to have Supervisor Brenda Adams come up to read the proclamation.
Chairman's Proclamation celebrating Women's History Month. Whereas throughout history, women have made significant contributions to our society in all fields, including education, science, business, government, the arts, and the military. And whereas women of every race, class, and background have strengthened our communities and played a vital role in shaping our nation's progress through leadership, resilience, and determination. And whereas National Women's History Month, observed every March, is a time to recognize and celebrate the achievements and contributions of women, both past and present, who have paved the way for future generations. And whereas the County of Columbia acknowledges the importance of gender equality, the empowerment of women, and the continued efforts to break barriers in all areas of life. And whereas we honor the countless women who have fought for social justice, civil rights, and equal opportunities, ensuring a more just and equitable society for all. Now therefore be proclaimed that March 25 is hereby recognized as Women's History Month in Columbia County, New York. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next I'd like to have Supervisor Tim Mooms come up for the purpose of reading a proclamation regarding fair housing.
Whereas the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, under Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, as amended, administering all programs and activities relating to housing and community development in a manner to affirmatively further fair housing and Executive Order 11063 on equal opportunity in housing and non-discrimination in the sale or rental of housing built with federal assistance, and the Columbia Fair Housing Plan states further the long-term goal to assure that any person can obtain housing within their economic means in the County of Columbia, regardless of his or her race, religion, sex, national origin, marital status, or physical handicap. And whereas the Columbia County Fair Housing Office works diligently to educate the public about fair housing laws and the opportunities afforded them, regardless of race, religion, sex, national origin, marital status, or physical handicap. In doing so, they are enabling those who might not otherwise have the opportunity to dream of being a homeowner and the pride of self-esteem that comes with it. Now therefore be it resolved that all Columbia County residents are urged to learn more about fair housing practices, and be it further resolved that I, Matt D. Morrell, Chairman of the Columbia County Board of Supervisors, do hereby declare the month of April as Fair Housing Month in Columbia County.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to request the clerk read the resolutions.
Resolution 65 of 2025 to 91 of 2025 by Supervisor Eldridge.
Chairman Morrell, I will put these resolutions for adoption.
Second motion?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 92 of 2025 to 118 of 2025 by Supervisor MacArthur.
Mr. Chairman,
Hey,
I offer these resolutions for adoption. I second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Any supervisors have any business to bring before the board? Supervisor Chamides had his hand up first.
well, it's, Women's History Month. So I'm gonna take it.
There you go.
So I understand there are only two sexes in America. Now, you're not laughing. That's not why I'm speaking. I just want to understand the 11 Warren Street project. I am on the Space and Utilization Committee. So I understand that I'm to go to Public Works to find out what's going on with that project. Is that true?
I do provide Public Works with updates every month.
So that's where I should go to keep up with what you're doing. Okay. And I guess the next question I have is, how do we imagine Hudson responding to the design of the exterior? Like who am I to go to and say, well, you know, where should I go with that information? Do I go to the mayor? Do I go, like who? Like, are we gonna take a vote on what it should look like? I'm not sure. When you say you haven't heard from anyone,
So
who are
during,
you imagining hearing from?
honestly, the just general public,
Okay.
as far as that's concerned, whether it's organized or unorganized. Again, there were several members that had attended the meeting that we did have as far as the Public Works, or my apologies, the Spatialization Committee. But even when the full board was considering moving forward and purchasing it, there was, general public that had attended that meeting. So whether it's organized through the city of Hudson, whether they're private individuals, maybe starting with the first ward, I'm sorry, not the first ward, my apologies, the members from the city council that have had interest in the project as well. I'm just looking for guidance of thoughts of what they may like it to look for, because my concern, as I mentioned during our meeting at Spatialization Committee, is I don't want to head down a road of what I believe they want it to look like. Whether it's charrettes that they would like to provide, whether it's photos, any input, so it gives us a starting point. Obviously, we would then create elevations, create some documents for folks to review, but I just want to have some initial
Okay.
concept.
All right, I'll take that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Chamides.
Thanks.
Now I'm going to allow Mr.
You had to cede your time.
Cede my time.
So at last month's meeting, I had sort of warned about my concerns around cuts to Medicaid and SNAP. I'm still concerned about that. I want to come back to the board. So a week after last month's board meeting, the National Association of Counties put out a public letter to Congress, also expressing its concerns about changes to Medicaid, that even just changing eligibility would have drastic impacts to residents in counties across the country. And they were really concerned about it. Unfortunately, a week after that, the House passed a budget framework that called for $880 billion worth of cuts to the committee that houses Medicaid, and almost the entire element of that committee is healthcare. So there is potentially for pretty drastic cuts to Medicaid, also to programs like SNAP. Here in Columbia County, 31% of our residents are on Medicaid, 40% of our children are on Medicaid. So you take that away, that's gonna be pretty huge for us in our county. Also, our hospital drastically relies on Medicaid payments. So if you reduce the amount of people who have Medicaid, that's gonna really harm the economic feasibility of the hospital, our largest employer. And you can start to see these domino effects. What happens if the hospital fails? What happens to EMS at that next stage? And the cost of sort of providing people medical care. So we're at a pretty dangerous precipice of what can happen over the next year. Unfortunately, actually, it's pretty easy to solve, is that if the New York State delegation stuck together and said no cuts to Medicaid, there wouldn't be cuts to Medicaid. And so I think if we expect the New York State delegation to do that, we should do the same. So I'm sort of calling on us as a board of supervisors to stand together and to show our delegation that this is an issue that we care about, and that we're not going to be quiet on this. And we're going to stand up and say no cuts to Medicaid. I encourage us to say that, and to encourage our entire delegation to insist that there be no cuts to Medicaid this year. So I hope we can do that. So that's what I want to share.
I just wanted to add that Bob Gibson and I have spoken, and that we're going to get together very, very, very soon to talk about some of his concerns around that issue.
Thanks.
So, and hopefully we'll have more definitive information around that issue. Supervisor Adams, I'm sorry.
In the interim, could we consider drafting a resolution in Health and Human Services to come to the board next month? Even if we're just speaking in general terms, because of the timing of this, could we consider having a resolution that's drafted along the line of Supervisor Chimidi's points for that purpose? I mean,
I'd like to see the resolution that NACO passed. Isn't NACO?
They just sent a letter.
Oh, okay.
but I do think it would be useful for us to have as one voice, because this matters to, for all of us to support a letter from this board.
Supervisor Bowman.
So along the lines of what we were saying, I'm glad to hear that you and Bob Gibson are meeting. I definitely think about mental health and Dan Almasi. I think about Ray and bridge funding. A lot of what the county does is reliant on federal funds. So me and my committees, right, space utilization, I think that we should have a game plan that's not just DSS and you, maybe it's DSS and Dan and you and another supervisor, but I think we need to start talking about if these cuts do happen and it is funding that we are reliant upon, what's our short-term plan? Is it like a COVID thing where we say, okay, all, non-necessary spending is frozen. What's our, 1-year plan going into the 26 budget? I know at my town, we started talking about it. I think it's important to just look at what if some of these cuts do happen. Pretty much anywhere that they're talking about federal funding, whether it's roads and bridges and, chips for the town or mental health or DSS, it's going to affect not just our residents, but us as county government, because our departments, DSS, mental health, public works, are reliant on those federal funds coming. And so I think in addition, I support a resolution completely. Thank you for doing that, to say, hey, we don't need the details, but please don't cut Medicaid funding. It will really harm, our constituents, but also to start talking about what is our plan if that were to happen, because I don't think we're going to have a ton of heads up. I don't think we're going to have 6 months to figure it out. I think we're going to, similar to COVID, we're going to need to kind of hit the ground running. And if we start that planning process now, that might give us an extra month or two that we've been talking about it and planning it. So I would love to see.
I think the briefing by Commissioner Gibson is a starting point.
Absolutely.
I mean, right after that probably will be the Health and Human Services. So then more people can be brought into the discussion.
Do you think that'll be next week's committee meeting or?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, that's terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, any other supervisors?
Chairman, I just wanted to thank you for getting out the burn ban state of emergency early. It's been dry. We're seeing fires everywhere. So thank you. We posted that. I'm sure a lot of towns posted it right away. let people know that they're endangering their neighbors by doing stupid things. So
I didn't need a lot of convincing when I found out there were 4 brush fires
Right, yeah.
in the county, so.
We actually had someone that started a brush fire within an hour of your notice. They hadn't seen it yet, obviously, because they were rushing to meet the burn ban. And imagine the wind was blowing 20 miles an hour.
That's why so many people are trying to beat 16.
right.
So it's a good thing, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wait till that's really wild.
Okay. We have, some board appointments. The Climate Action Plan Committee, we're going to appoint the following members: Ron Knott, Brenda Adams, Donald Collins, Patrice Perry, Don Meltz, Ray Jakowski, Wendy Madsen, a Health Department rep, Michael Tucker from CEDC, Terrence Duval of CLC, David Newman, Michael O'Hara, and Will Yandick. And I think what I'm gonna do is ask, Ron Knott and Brenda Adams to co-chair the committee. Since you two seem to travel together now.
I think there's been something to talk about.
Some tea at the Board of Supervisors.
And I also want to, before we adjourn, I want to thank our facilities and our MIS department for this new setup. I think they did a wonderful job.
Yeah,
That's good.
looks great.
And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second.
Was that all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
How much?